What is up, guys? It's Matt the Gym right here, bringing y'all another great video. Alright, so we play a bunch of games throughout the years, and you don't really think about a lot of things that go into the games, but looking back at it, there's some games that we played this year that we can't even remember. So I got my friend Kreighton here from Team Chuck.
What's up, guys? Happy to be here.
To bring us a great video talking about games of the year.
All right, you guys. So 2019, we had a lot of ups and downs. I think what we wanted to start off with were kind of the winners and losers of the gaming industry for 2019. Some of the losers I've got Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint by Ubisoft, the Fallout 76 update from Bethesda, Jump Force, Anthem, the Blair Witch game, and Telltale Studios.
Some people took some fat L's this year, and so it was pretty funny just to see that. So personally for me, Crackdown 3 was another one I felt like should be mentioned because it wasn't a bad game, but it wasn't a good game. So everybody was expecting so much from Crackdown 3. It was this big game that they had been working on for so long, and then it comes out and nobody really cares. So
I think it ended up just being another Crackdown game.
Yeah, that's really what it was. It was just another Crackdown game, and it missed on everything that it promised on. So you didn't really miss out much if you didn't play it. But personally, game that I thought took a big L this year was Jump Force. So Jump Force was this mashup anime game that everybody was looking forward to. All the Shonen Jump animes like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, every popular anime in the U.S. And so I was super excited. But when I got into it, it was not made good. The only good things about the game was the fighting animations. But besides that, just the story, the plot, the gameplay just was not there for the game, and it really let down on a bunch.
I actually wanted to come around to Telltale. What's their name?
Telltale Studios.
Telltale Studios. Sorry. And so I'm actually a huge fan of the Telltale Walking Dead games and The Wolf Among Us. I think those are some of their best work. I am a huge Batman fan. I haven't gotten around to the Batman games, but I do know that when those came out, they were super buggy in comparison to Wolf Among Us and Walking Dead. And then, there's just about every popular franchise that was out, Telltale either made a game or at least tried to make a game. Game of Thrones, Borderlands, Guardians of the Galaxy. Telltale touched on all of those properties. And for the most part, I don't think I've heard anyone talk about them. And then, of course, the collapse of that studio altogether. And it's just kind of the games that were halfway finished, those people are being paid to go ahead and finish them and release them in partners with other companies. But they were really just overworking their workers and not paying them. And it's kind of sad to see a company with such great potential kind of go under because they essentially bit off more than they could chew.
Alright guys, so moving on from the losers, we're going to go on to the winners of this year. So I kind of broke these up just so we could elaborate more on certain games and not have to put it all into one category. So now we're going to do the best indie games of 2019. Listing off a couple, Disco Elysium was a huge game. A lot of people loved it.
Heard a lot about that.
Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was another popular one.
My Friend Pedro, heard a lot about that.
Yeah, My Friend Pedro, I played that, loved that. But I think my favorite indie game of the year was Wargroove. So it's kind of like a return to the old JRPG games of the strategy games. So basically, it was just one of those games where you would build up an army, take bases, and you had certain units, and they could do certain attacks. And so you played through, and you started out. I played the story mode, so you start out on just a gridded battlefield, and you could move your units, and they would have certain strengths, certain weaknesses, and it was just really an in-depth. The animations were great. I really love the sprites in that game.
Gotcha.
And so it was just one of those games that you could really kick back. And, I mean, the games will last up to like 45 minutes to an hour. So it sucked whenever you lost because you had to redo that. But whenever you won, it was very, it felt good to just sit down, play the game for that long, and kick back and just, turn off your brain and just, play the game.
Right on.
I really liked it.
All right, so my best indie game is going to be The Outer Wilds. Yeah, so The Outer Wilds, not to be confused with The Outer Worlds, which is that first-person role-playing game. The Outer Wilds is a space exploration game, and it's just kind of like a big sandbox. You put on your astronaut gear, you get in a spaceship, you fly around to several different planets, and there's kind of like this breadcrumb trail of a mystery that you're supposed to solve as the alien. I can't remember his name, but you do play as an alien from some species you've never seen before. And it's super interesting because each planet kind of has their own ecosystem that you have to sort of figure out through trial and error. And without spoiling too much, whenever you die, you respawn at kind of the beginning of the game, and it turns out to kind of be like a I hate to spoil so much, but almost like a time loop. And so you kind of progress through the game through trial and error, seeing which things work, which things kill you, which things blow up your spaceship, things like that. All right, so Matt, let's go ahead and jump ahead to some of our favorite multiplayer games of the year. All right, so some of the multiplayer games of the year that a lot of people talk about. We've got Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Gears 5.
Remnant of the Ashes was one that I know you played a good bit. World War Z was another one that kind of brought all of us Left 4 Dead players back from the grave just to enjoy something. And then Apex Legends, which was one of those free battle royales that EA put out, and we're like, to EA, you're going to fuck it up again. And sure enough, they didn't.
Apex Legends kind of took everybody, I would say, by surprise.
Yeah.
And even though it came out really early this year, it's still very relevant, and it's, to some people, it's even seen as the Fortnite killer.
Yeah. So definitely for me, Apex Legends. Apex Legends definitely gets my multiplayer game of the year, just because it was one of those games that, you know, you could sit back and play it for hours. It kind of brought that Overwatch feel into it, where you had like these certain legends that you could play with, and they kept on introducing new ones, which really kept the interest in. They were slow at the start. They kind of put it out, and they were like, guys, have fun with it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to touch it for another 4 months. And everybody's like, what's happening? And then they finally came in. They put out new stuff. They put out a new map. So it's one of those games that really kept people engaged, even though, like, when they started losing interest and when they started dropping content.
Yep.
So it was one of those things that you could really get invested to.
Right. And they had a zombie mode for Halloween, which was also super different, that you don't see a lot in the Battle Royale genre.
Yeah, they put a lot of effort into the themes and everything.
Yes.
So definitely for me, Apex Legends is my multiplayer game of the year.
Right. And I would actually go ahead and agree with that, because unfortunately I haven't played a lot of other multiplayer games this year, or at least not the ones that came out this year. All right, you guys. So now we're going to go ahead and segue into the single player game. So this one, I think we might talk a long time about, because I think 2019 really ran off with the single player games.
A lot more than multiplayer.
Right. And which is great to see, because I think when we started this generation of consoles, a lot of people were afraid that we were going to slowly be stepping away from the single player genre, and everything was going to go towards player versus player online multiplayer. But I think this year showed us that no, people are still craving, buying, and playing single player games. I'm going to go ahead and list off some of the biggest contenders for the best single player game of the year. The Outer Worlds, Death Stranding, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, Devil May Cry 5, and Resident Evil 2 Remake. So my single player game of the year is probably going to be The Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds?
Yeah.
I saw that coming from you. But
yeah. So I am a big Fallout fan from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. I liked Fallout 4, but it definitely isn't what the previous ones were. And if you guys don't know, the creators of The Outer Worlds was the team that worked with Bethesda to create Fallout 3 and New Vegas.
Yeah, Obsidian.
Yes, and they've broken off from Bethesda and just kind of perfected their craft. And if I could say what it is, it's kind of like Futurama. Futurama meets an open world Borderlands, or if Borderlands is open world, I've never.
And definitely with a lot of like Fallout and Mass Effect vibes.
And it's very funny. It's very meta. It references itself. And, you know, it supports all kinds of play styles, and it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
But it's something you can get lost in for a few hours and not even realize how long you've been playing it. All right, Matt, what was your single player game?
So even though Kreighton doesn't like it, no one say Kreighton doesn't like it. He doesn't think it's the best. I personally think Jedi Fallen Order was my favorite single player game of the year. I played a good bit. I played like God of War 3 and Code Vein, and I enjoyed those games a lot. But I definitely think that Fallen Order with the platforming in it and the fighting, the mechanics in it. It definitely was one of those games that they mixed all that stuff together and then also put it in a universe where it could thrive, something like Star Wars. It really made that game really good.
Absolutely. I think it did a very good job of giving you a likable character and throwing you into that Star Wars world.
Star Worlds.
Star Worlds.
Star Wars, the new washer.
Company of the Year.
Company of the Year. Yeah, this is the one I'm kind of looking forward to.
Okay, so we're talking developers, publishers, all the names. All right, so I'm going to list off all the big ones, of course, and we're going to touch base on each guy. So I think the companies of the year probably going to be Rockstar, Ubisoft, some branches of Ubisoft.
Some branches.
Definitely Nintendo. Microsoft. I personally wanted to throw in there 343 Industries, and we'll get to that. But I did want to avoid the EA and BioWare, of course, and I think we all know why.
I would say, going into it, that my company of the year is Microsoft.
Microsoft?
The hardware that Microsoft puts out is great. The software that they've been bringing to that hardware has been amazing. So the Game Pass is just one of the greatest things in gaming right now.
If you have an Xbox and you don't have Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate and you're buying these new games at launch, you are spending more money than you have to.
Yeah, you're taking a fat L because there's so many games on there that you could honestly play 3 games and you would get your money back for the year.
Absolutely. So, for example, all of the Gears of War games are on there.
All of them.
Even Gears, the one that came out this year, The Outer Worlds, World War Z,
Outer Wilds came out.
Outer Wilds is on there.
Like
all of the Tomb Raider games.
All of the Tomb Raider
the new
games,
ones, excuse me. The good ones that people care about. But it's just, and it's like if you pay your $60 at launch, if you pay your $40 6 months after launch, I think, what is Game Pass for a whole year membership? $50?
Yeah, so I have the Ultimate and it's $15, and what that does is it's your console, your PC, also Game Pass on PC, and then also your Xbox Live membership. So 15 times 12 is a number.
Right.
It's $180. Yeah.
And a good thing is it's not just these big games. There are indie games, exclusive Microsoft indie companies that you might not know are exclusive because they're so small, but they're getting the recognition that their games deserve because they're on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And this audience with Game Pass can play these games, essentially give more publicity and money to these companies and make them bigger. And it's just, you're missing out, guys who don't have Game Pass. Let's go ahead and segue into Ubisoft. So Ubisoft is kind of a really strange company.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the parent who comes home and is always like, I've got good news and bad news. That's Ubisoft every year. So of course their bad news this year was probably The Division 2. While critics loved it, I think for the most part every other friend I've had that has played it is like, it wasn't.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was. Apparently the gameplay is great, but.
Yeah, I actually bought 3 games full price this year, and Division 2 is one of them, and I played about 4 hours of it, and that was done.
The Division 2 and then Ghost Recon Breakpoint are kind of Ubisoft's 2 biggest losses of the year.
Definitely.
But Ubisoft, they really do make up for it for some of these, games is seen as a service. So Rainbow Six Siege and For Honor kind of have some of the biggest communities right now in terms of those genres, like shooters. Anybody who is big into shooters right now knows what Rainbow Six Siege is or plays it. And everybody who's into slashers right now probably has at least tried For Honor, or if not plays it. And the thing is both of those games had very rough launches. And Ubisoft's treatment over the years has brought those games back from the dead, essentially. And they're both esport games, and they've got pretty big followings, and it's great to see, like, while I would prefer a game be that great at launch, it's good to see that they don't just ditch it and make, Rainbow Six Siege 2 or For Honor 2 like they've done with The Division and Tom Clancy's
Breakpoint.
Yeah, Ghost Recon. So now we are here at Games of the Decade. So whenever we were thinking of this list, I had to think long and hard because there are a lot of games that we forget about, and when I say forget about, we forget just how great they actually were.
Yeah.
Matt, I want to hear yours first.
All right, so just going down a couple of the games I would like to mention: Skyrim, Portal 2, The Witcher 3, Metal Gear Solid 5. What else did we have? Red Dead 2 also came out this year. Breath of the Wild. Those are all great games, and while I'm not knocking any of them, I personally had the funnest time this decade playing PUBG. And so PUBG is my game of the decade, and while a lot of people think that it's still a buggy mess full of cheaters, it's definitely not that. They constantly put out updates. They've constantly made the game fun. It's the first game I ever played, and I thought I was gonna shit myself playing it.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where I could feel my heartbeat whenever I play that game. It gives me so much adrenaline. It gives me so much fun. You can play it with people. They're making it. They made it cross compatible with consoles now. So it's one of those things that it's been out for a while, and people have hated it, but people are still playing it. And I'm one of those guys that's still playing it because I have a lot of fun playing it.
If it's my turn now,
yeah,
for the games of the decade, it really came down between Witcher 3 and Skyrim, but I'm going to give it to The Witcher 3. And that is mostly because when you give the players a character, a contained character, you can witness character development and stick with them through a journey and see how their personality influences your decisions in the world. You play as Geralt, and you can choose what Geralt says. You can choose what Geralt does on certain quests. But when you see his reactions to certain things, you go, well, what would Geralt do? And you play in accordance to that character. Or if you think Geralt should be a good guy. And I think that's while Skyrim is overflowing with content, it does fall short with that Bethesda formula. It's just give them a vast open world, but leave it kind of empty. And with The Witcher 3, honestly, was overflowing with content. So I bought this game in 2015.
When it came out.
It came out, and I actually just finished the main quest yesterday.
Yeah, because you didn't want to beat it, did you?
Exactly. Everybody, I think I tried getting you into The Witcher. I've gotten a couple of our buddies into The Witcher, and they would ask if I've beaten it. Kreighton, have you finished The Witcher? Have you played the DLC quests? And I'm like, I have done every single side quest. I have played all the Gwent tournaments. I've done all the horse races because I didn't want that game to end. That's why I never I have all of the mastercrafted armor. I've gone on all the scavenger hunts. Like, there's not a single question mark on my world map because I didn't want the game to be over. And luckily, it came out. I went ahead and finished it because the Netflix series dropped. And I'm like, okay, there's more Witcher out there. So when I finish this game, it's not the last of it.
It's not going to end.
Yeah. So, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and leave 2019 and the 2010s behind, and we're going to look forward to the horizon that is 2020.
Yeah, man. And so a lot of games have already been announced for 2020 that we're looking forward to. And while some of them, a lot of people are looking forward to, some of them people might not even know about. So, Kreighton, you want to list off some of the games you have?
Absolutely. I've got Cyberpunk was the year 2079?
2021.
Nah.
1969.
Cyberpunk, it's
2077.
Cyberpunk, it's the future. It's the future, maybe. And there's Keanu Reeves.
Back to the Cyberpunk future.
Cyberpunk, Keanu Reeves is there. Okay. Halo Infinite, Dying Light 2, Tom Clancy's Quarantine. I have a typo here. It was supposed to be Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. My typo says Frogman Ball Z. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Last of Us 2.
Yeah, Last of Us 2 has been announced. Tales of Arise is another one for me. I love the Tales series, so Tales of Arise coming out is definitely giving me a hard on. Watch Dogs 2 is coming out.
Right, well, Watch Dogs Legion.
Yeah,
two is in the past.
2 is in the past.
Yeah. So, which ones are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so definitely, I would say the game that I'm looking forward to the most is Final Fantasy VII Remake. So, I'm gonna definitely buy Final Fight 47. Final Fantasy 7. I'm definitely gonna buy Final Fantasy 7. And play it through so I can play through Final Fantasy VII Remake and know what the hell's going on.
Right.
But just when people talk about Final Fantasy VII, like everybody from the 90s that grew up in the 90s played Final Fantasy VII.
If you talk about Final Fantasy period, everyone when you think of, if you have to get somebody to name a character from Final Fantasy, they usually name a character from Final Fantasy VII.
And Final Fantasy VII is one of the last Final Fantasies that we got that people consider one of the best games of all time.
Absolutely.
6 and Tactics are the other ones.
Yeah.
And I think like 8 and 9 people regard very highly. But 7 was one of those ones that came out and people were like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's a game that came out when you and I were, or the year I was born.
Yeah.
And it's, people younger than us know what Final Fantasy VII is because it's that great of a game.
So, Kreighton, tell us, what is your game of 2020?
Man, this is tough. This is really, it comes down between 3. And to keep it short, I'm just going to do a couple little dibbles across them.
Let's dibble.
I'm going to go Dying Light 2, Halo Infinite, and Cyberpunk.
Okay.
So, I was a huge fan of the first Dying Light game. It is your Left 4 Dead meets Mirror's Edge. First-person parkour game with picking up a shovel in the street, taping a car battery to it, and tasing every zombie you can find. It's so sandboxy, but also it's got a generic but also interesting story to follow. And with Dying Light 2, being on a bigger world with another new story, new characters, it's exciting to see, and I'm definitely going to be getting that. Halo Infinite, 343 Industries was one of my companies of the year. Mm-hmm. So 343, they have had some hits and some misses when it comes to Halo. Bungie left the fate of Halo to 343 Industries after Bungie left to go make Destiny, which that's a whole nother discussion on its own. But 343, after Halo 4 and Halo 5, which were both highly hyped up and then underwhelming after release, they have done a lot to win back the fan support with the Master Chief Collection and Halo Reach coming to PC, and it has almost kind of put given the Halo fanbase CPR and brought it back. And Halo Infinite kind of seems like that return to formula that will bring Halo back to being one of the bigger games on the market, because if we're being honest, it's a shell of what it used to be.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Cyberpunk. So
the Keanu Reeves game of the year, 2019.
Absolutely. The John Wick has a metal arm.
Yeah. It's definitely I would say it's the John Wick of video games.
So
it's the Avengers Infinity War video games.
Right, okay. So Cyberpunk, CD Projekt Red, creators of Witcher 3.
Yep.
My game of the decade. They are making a first-person RPG, open world, set in the future. Mm-hmm. What is it? Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, definitely.
Total Recall. They are now a game.
Yeah.
There's flying cars. There's flying motorcycles. You play as a guy named Samurai. You can customize everything about him, which doesn't make sense for a first-person game.
Yeah.
Other than hand tattoos and fingernail polish, I don't think you'll really be able to see much of your guy. Mm-hmm. Maybe cutscenes. They're like, oh, that haircut looks good in a cutscene.
When you do get to it.
Right. And so, but I really do think, because CD Projekt Red does, they don't get into that big corporate meddling like Ubisoft and EA. CD Projekt Red keeps a small team. In a small team, they deliver on what they promise.
Yeah, they definitely have a rock star aura about themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, guys, that is all from us. So please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Please leave us any tips, because this is the first time of us doing it. But with that said, what was your favorite game of 2019, and what did you think just utterly failed in 2019? What are you looking forward to in 2020?
We want to hear it.
Yeah, what was your favorite game of the decade?
We'll have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
We'll exchange phone numbers.
Yeah. We reply to our comments. We read them because we don't get a lot of them.
Yeah.
So,
and we do Discord too. Join both Discords.
Yeah.
Join my Discord first, but then join Matt's.
We'll put everything down in the description. I'll make sure to link Kreighton's YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Team Chuck
Down in the description. Make sure to subscribe to him. That is all from me, Matt the Gym Rat. Y'all be cool, and remember, lifting is life. Lifting and gaming is life. Gaming and lifting.
Both of those things.
Gaming is
not
life.
at the same time.
Yeah. Don't
counterproductive.
Yep. All right, guys. Later.
Watch that pussy nigga run when I swipe fist. Watch that pussy nigga shoot when I swipe fist. I don't need no strap, I let my blade hit.
if you guys stuck around, this is for the Patreon patrons. I'm Kreighton, and I'm going to cut Matt open with a chainsaw.